So how's things going with you in Florida?
Good. I mean, survived it.
I even thought that this was not going to happen, this conversation, because considering how things are in that part of the world, it's kind of crazy.
It was, I mean, we got lucky. It was a crazy thing about this storm is, first of all, it's my first real hurricane in Florida. I lived in Chicago and we had bad weather there, which was a lot of wind, obviously the windy city. But even Montreal, when I lived up there, I mean, we had the ice storms were crazy. I still remember the one that shut down the whole city. But this thing was different because it never really hits as as a Cat 4. And the fact that it was so strong coming in, especially places like Fort Myers, completely got devastated. We have in my neighborhood somebody that works for the weather department, and they were telling us that they're showing us the model, and it was showing that it was coming right through my neighborhood. Like it was going to cross right into Orlando, right into like 4 houses up from me, like the eye of the storm. So we were starting to freak out a little bit because we started seeing the weather, it was calm but eerie, and then it started getting crazy, the winds and everything. And I was like, oh wow. But then it took a turn and it ended up going right under us. And so we had a lot of rain, a lot of flooding in Orlando, but that's it. Like it wasn't, I
All
never
things
lost
considered,
power.
wasn't that bad.
No, but it was, let's say we were about an hour away from it in the sense of it really coming right on top of my house type of thing. So I think, so that was a little scary.
So talking about the eye of the storm, let's talk about Invictus and Unstoppable,
Right.
because what a storm this record is going to be once people get a chance to listen to it. I have to ask you this. You're one of the busiest guys that I know. At what point in time did you look at yourself in the mirror and said, you know what I need? I need a solo project. So let's get going.
Well, the pandemic had a lot to do with that. And to be honest, it was a bad thing for a lot of people, but for me, it was a good place to ground myself down again and kind of analyze my life in general. Because when you don't have a choice to look yourself in the mirror, that's what happens, right? You have nothing else to do. But I was going 90,000 miles an hour. I was doing so many things. I was very close to a burnout, to be honest. And it's natural when you're doing so many things. And that's part of my character. I'm very driven and I'm very busy and I'm always looking for the next thing. But I've learned to kind of calm that down a little bit more and delegate more now compared to what I used to do everything myself. Us Italians are very like, we're
Hands-on.
brought up that way that you got to do it yourself or else it's not going to be right done right. And in you being Portuguese, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We have the same kind of Mediterranean or, Southern European type of mentality, which is do it yourself. And but I've learned that I have to trust more and delegate more. So basically that's an important factor into me doing this project because I didn't want to do it if I was going to be overwhelmed as well. So the Cataclysm record was done pre-pandemic. It was finished, ready to go, and the Exdeo was 50% done already. So basically, the idea we had at that time was to do a back-to-back type of thing, like Cataclysm, and then 6 months later the Exdeo. And that went to shit because of the situation we had, and we had to maneuver it and release the Cataclysm and all that. But then that gave me a lot of free time because this thing was taking much longer than expected, and I always wanted to do this project. I was connected with Chris Clancy during the Cataclysm recordings and with Colin Richardson. They were producing the album and we became good friends. And I always knew him as a great writer and singer as well. And we thought, why not join forces on my project? And that's how that really started off to take off. We had nothing, all of us, we didn't have much to do. And so we decided to throw ourselves into this project.
You had some free time. The first thing I noticed about this record when I started listening to it is that I was expecting to be Cataclysm 2.0. I mean, I think that's a fair assumption to have coming into the album, considering who's involved in it, but it wasn't. So did you have to change the microchip in you so that this album would not sound just like a Cataclysm album, but sound like something different from it?
We came in with this project differently. I know that the foundation's going to be there, right? Because no matter what, I'm the dude in Cataclysm. I've done 15 records, and Ex Deo's done 4, I believe now. And so at some point, you can escape as much as you want, but it's going to still have a little bit of your signature in there. So we knew that was going to be there, but I was not going to do a Cataclysm 2.0. I wanted to really, really push and explore other things. That's why also Chris was on it. I could sing some clean stuff, but I can't go where he goes. I mean, he's a great vocalist, and he's taken the lead on that part. And I've done some of it on the record, but he's done a lot of it himself. And the trick part was, can we combine it? Does it work, me and you, together? And the chemistry was incredible. It was fast. I'm a firm believer that if a song takes you a month, 2 months to write, unless you're maybe Devin Townsend, which is a genius that always, like he's a surgeon.
I just spoke to him like 20 minutes ago.
Oh, really? You did? Oh, cool. You say hi next time you talk. Cool. So, like I said, it's that surgeon stuff. Like what I do, it's very natural and organic. So if it comes out right, it's going to be pretty quick. So it took a year to put the record together, but it was quick as far as like us brainstorming. The chemistry was there. So that's always a good sign for me when I'm writing. So that came together with him easily. And then JF, obviously, I don't write without him around me. I mean, he's my partner in crime, and since the beginning of my musical career. And and you could tell when he's in, right? Like there's some of those riffs that are coming in, and like the Harley Davidson riffs, it's him, so it's cool that he put his touch, and everything came together pretty good. I'm very, very happy with the record, and we had to explore it, like you said, like it was an exploration thing.
Yeah. What did you feel that you could do with this project? What kind of freedom did you have, and where did you want to go with that freedom, that it wouldn't fit the Cataclysm mold, it wouldn't fit the Ex Deo mold, it had to be Invictus? What do you see as the uniqueness within that?
There was no expectations in a way, right? It's a first record. When you're doing something like this, I can't do an experiment like this, for example, with Cataclysm at this point in the career, where you're adding clean vocals everywhere and trying to, like a song like Bleed Me Out, for example, is very commercial driven. It could be a rock song, so it's something that we came in with the idea of, if we're going to do this, let's make it different. I didn't want to, like I said, like what I don't like when bands do side projects and they sound exactly like the band they do. And it's just an excuse to continue doing, putting records out. I just don't like that. And I wasn't going to do this with Invictus. We came in with the mentality of something fresh, and there was no expectations, no limits. Those two things were important. I mean, the only expectation is somebody's going to think there's going to be some death metal, well, obviously that's going to be the case, but that's why.
And there's a lot of it on this record, but that's not just the only thing there. I mean, there's lots of groove. There's a lot of melodic death metal elements. The album is really hard to define under one genre or under one umbrella. Are you okay with that diversity?
I think everything I've done except Ex Deo is hard to pinpoint. Even Cataclysm, where does it go? You know what I mean? It's not Suffocation, it's not Cannibal Corpse, it's not Hypocrisy. It's Cataclysm is Cataclysm, and I think Invictus has the same type of idea behind it, in a more commercial fashion, maybe. I think that there's one thing that this project really had, though, that when we sat down, I was like, look, these are the type of bands I grew up with that I really loved, and I still do, bands like Testament and Fear Factory and Machine Head. And I grew up listening to a lot of that type of stuff. All that Cataclysm influence I had, some type of groove, a little bit like that. That was me in the band, right? Because everybody brought different things. JF's an Iron Maiden dude, and then, the other guys brought some pure death metal, Morbid Angel type of stuff. That's Steph, But in this band, I was like, I really want to do something that's personalized to me, which is going to be more of in that world, a bit more trashy, stuff like that, But obviously, the signature death metal thing will still be there. I mean, it's still me, so when I do my stuff, so.
You mentioned Chris Clancy before and the impact that he has with his clean vocals on this record. Outside of the clean vocals, what does he give you that working with him on the previous Cataclysm album was the gateway to bring him into this project?
So he has a very good ear for production and melody. He's very good at that. So he was able to kind of already have a good pre-production setup for this record. He's a great singer. And when I mean great, I mean he can be up there with the best there is. If I'm going to do something like that and incorporate that type of cleanness vocals in, like some clean vocals in it, I wanted somebody that could do it right. You know, I'm not developed enough yet to be able to do it to that level. So I didn't want to start the record like this, let's say, project, the wrong way. I wanted to really give it the best chance it's got. So incorporating him as a duo with me, I think was a good decision. And he was able to have the same type of wave line. When you're writing, you all have to kind of be on the same level of writing, because if not, it's not going to go the way you want it. It's not going to have the chemistry. So there's a lot of factors that had that part, and then JF's the easiest guy to work with. So that made all gel together. And then I have also Jeremy playing, which was he's in Venom Inc. Cool drummer, great guy, lives close to me. And at that time, we didn't want to go too far. We were like, you're here, you're down. And he's like, absolutely, I love the band and the music he heard. So he was in, and he was the perfect guy for this, because it's a pounding thing, right? It needs to be like a heavy rock kind of feel.
Yeah, I was going to mention that to you, because one of the things that I noticed that immediately separates this record from Cataclysm is the drum sound.
Right.
In Cataclysm, you have more of that traditional death metal pounding you to submission, and here is a little bit more subtle. Even though Jeremy also drums in a death metal band, so like, I mean, the guy is super versatile. Was that also a selling point besides the real estate?
It wasn't just getting him because he plays already in the band. He was the right guy to do this project, and he was willing to do it. And first, I always play music and ask, what do you think? Sometimes some people lie and say they like it, right? but I know he was really into it, and he was like, hey, I want to do it. You know what I mean? So it was a no-brainer for me. I'm a very a guy that goes on instinct. So this has been my weapon all my life with everything, right? So I'm pretty good at instinct. I'm pretty good at pinpointing something or somebody for a project or for things like that to work with. And I go with the feeling, and I think that's the human feeling. It comes first. If it makes sense and everybody's connecting, you're going to have a good product in the end, And I've always believed in that part, as a musician.
When you were putting this together, did you think that the biggest challenges or the biggest hurdles that you were going to face were going to be after the album is done and you try to get the music out there and you got to try to get exposure? Mm-hmm. Did that ever cross your mind when you guys were going through the process of recording and putting everything together?
So absolutely. And this project in its entire, like the idea behind it in the beginning was to launch my record label, Distortion Music Group. I was going to put this record on that label and help it kind of, get it out there. And I sent the demo out to Nuclear Blast and a few labels. And because I needed to see also the importance of what they thought about it, because that gives me a little bit of a hint if there's something, I'm doing something right. But I had to send it also to Nuclear Blast because of the Cataclysm years and everything I've done with them out of respect. I'm like, look, I'm going to do this project. Just a heads up that there's not going to be a Cataclysm record for a little bit because of this, and so they went crazy on it. They loved it. So they were like, dude, we want to put this out. Like, we want to release this. At the same time, I had other people interested in it because it started spreading in the interior of the music business. And then we ended up going with Monarch because it's a different thing. And I wanted to go with a more commercial record label for this, something different than what I've been doing. I've given Nuclear Blast 15 albums and an ex-Deo record. And I figured this is the time for me to try something new, sign with a North American label for once. And they have good bands like Black Label Society, High on Fire and all that. So
Crowbar is there too.
Yeah, Crowbar, great band. So I figured let's try it, right? And I was worried about, is it going to be picked up in a way of people, are they going to give it a chance? Because again, what you said is very interesting in the beginning, because that always was in my mind. Are they going to think it's going to be Cataclysm 2.0? We're not going to give it a chance because we already know what he does. Or are they going to really pay attention to it and listen to it because it's different, you know? So we went through a strong period of questioning a couple of things. We decided to go with this record label. They did a great job. We just had issues in the beginning with the algorithms that killed the first single. It didn't kill it. It just slowed down the whole process compared to what it was supposed to do. So the exposure wise, it's been a big challenge for us. And it's because of the name, apparently, of Invictus. It's so broad and it touches so many things, like including the movie, that there was like copyright infringements and all kinds of stuff that came crashing on us right off the bat. It's all fixed now, though. It's starting to pick up now again, and people are starting to pay attention now to it. So that's a good thing.
When it came to the lyrical content on this record, it's obvious that the pandemic played a role. It had an impact on it. Yeah. It was for you something that you couldn't walk away from. I mean, the album, the whole project was born out of the pandemic. The lyrical content had to represent that state of mind.
I wasn't a happy person during the pandemic. I enjoyed the time off, and I spent a lot of time with my kids, and that to me it was irreplaceable. Because, you know, when you become a machine that you're working all the time, you start thinking that I'll do it tomorrow or whatever, and yeah, I'll hang out tomorrow or whatever, and then you realize that's a mistake. So to me, like I said, was a good thing, but at the same time, it was a poisonous time, in my opinion. You know, the information that was coming out of everywhere, it was as if people knew whoever's running the companies and whoever's in it for whatever reason, they knew that people had nowhere else to go but be stuck in front of their computers and TV. So they just pushed all this stuff out there, and it was very difficult to really know what's real, what's not. And then you question something and you're getting banned. You do anything and it's a problem. And I'm a type of person that no matter what you're going to bring me in front of me, for whatever reason it is, I'm going to question it. You know, I think I'm going to look for the reasons why this is happening and whatever. And I think that pandemic, when it was new for everybody, it was scary also at some point. It was real, you know, but at the same time, there was a lot of things that needed to be assessed, and it brought in all these other problems, you know, in society that you know, I think to me was weaponized in a certain way, and it got me angry. And when I get like that, I start writing, and that's what makes me a musician that does music as a career, because to me, music is an output, right? I'm not in it only for it as far as you know, being a musician, playing live shows and making money and drinking beer or whatever. That's fun also, but I'm in it because to me it's therapeutic, and I had to get this output out, you know. And it was important to me to do it, and that was a big factor into the lyrical content of this record. You know, there's a lot of personal stuff on the album. It's, you know, if I compare this to other stuff I've done, for example, Cataclysm, Exdale, they all have their own identity of what they are. You know, Cataclysm is very open. You know, it's an open book. You write it, I write lyrics with an idea behind it, but then you can read it and for you means something, right? So Cataclysm is more open to everything. You know, you interpret it the way you want to. You know, I have an idea, but it's whatever you want, you know, to see it as. As far as Ex Deo, obviously it's historic. It's something that happened, and it's a perfect place, death metal, for a band like Ex Deo to explore, you know. But this is more personal. It has more of my signature on it. It's more about my thoughts. You know, it's different. As far as the three are completely different things.
I think one of the most personal tracks probably on the album is "Ghost of My Father." Right. How was it for you to write that song, and what did it mean for you?
Difficult. It was probably the hardest one to write for me, because it kind of revisits old scars. It's also a song that you know, I hesitated to put on the record. I never went there too much with that type of thing, because it's very personal, and I'm very introverted in many ways. but when it comes to, unless you're in my circle, then I'm not. But if
because I was going to say
right,
I know you pretty well, and I don't see you as an introvert. But
I'm not,
okay.
yeah, if you're in my circle and I know you, and you know, it's different. But if I, out there, I don't like for all my stuff to be completely, you know, everywhere, you know. But in this type of thing, I felt like you know, in life you're held, you're dealt a hand, right? And in the end, it's about how you play the game. If you're going to come out of it smart, good, or if you're going to fall into the traps of, you know, being scarred by something or whatever, you know. In this case, you know, when my father wasn't around, you know, he was a old school Italian bad boy that came out of, you know, Sicily, and, you know, all the trademarks that you can imagine were there. You know, he was a good man for us, like, as, but he was not around, you know. And at that point, when you're in the place where I came up in Montreal, it kind of, you know, it was a rough place. I was the only kid that didn't have his dad around. I had to go up in the streets where I live. It was the eastern part of Montreal, which is a very rough area, multicultural. Like a lot of, you know, stuff happened, and it was always with the fists up in the air, you know. Like, that's how I grew up, you know, in the city. You know, people see Canada as this super peaceful area that nothing ever happens, and there's only like you know, people cutting down trees and stuff. But when I grew up, you know, that's where all of it happened, you know, to me. You know, I even worked as a bouncer in clubs at some point, and I got shot at, you know, I got stabbed there. Like, so many things have happened that, you know, I have a tough skin. I owe it to Montreal for it, you know, because it made me who I am in my character. And so the only thing is that you know, you got the battle scars, and some of the stuff in there is personal like that, you know. So, you know, it makes you who you are, and I'm grateful for that stuff too, because, you know, hard times make men you know, work harder in the future, you know what I mean?
I
So
I agree with you.
that's a thing that I've taken to heart. Even with my kids, I'm very, you know, you got to earn everything.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, you're definitely not giving anybody an easy ride. That's for sure.
No,
At least
no.
based on the conversations we've had, I'm from the same school of thought, so I share exactly the same kind of beliefs. I think it builds character, and I think
Yeah.
that's one of the things the world is lacking these days is character. So,
Yes.
you know, I think that's something we have to hold on to. When you said that Cataclysm is going to have to wait, this was coming down the pipe. So is
Mhm.
this not going to be just a studio project for you? Are you taking this show on the road?
Um, no. So I'm not sure yet, to be honest with you. It's I have a packed year next year, and it depends how it does, right? Like, if people enjoy it, they want to see it live, I'll do something, you know. And but right now we're kind of still kind of understanding where it's going to go or what it's going to be. You know, I did it for me as a thing that I wanted to do. Obviously, when I write music, I just don't write it for myself. I also write it for fans, because I mean, then I just have to do it for me, and I'll listen to it here by myself, right? So I have a philosophy of, when you write music, the people are the judge, and they decide if they want you to come out and play for them, right? So I see it like that. If I get demand for this, I'll probably look into it to do some shows, you know. I know the label and management and people that I'm working with. I did delegate this project to somebody else than me. They all want me to go out and play for this project. Chris lives in England. I would, you know, I want to do it with him. So it's going to be one of those things where, if it works out, yes, you know.
I
But
really
for
hope you
now,
do. I really
uh,
hope you do, because this album is, I mean, if you at the very minimum, if you don't get a Juno nomination for this shit, I think me
yeah.
and you need to drive to whatever those people's houses are and have a serious conversation with them, because this album is phenomenal.
Thank you.
Phenomenal.
Thank you. Thank you. And I've, you know, when I first listened to it, and I said, holy shit, I think we did something good here. You know, like, it wasn't, I'm hard on myself when it comes to music. And I should have been harder in my early records in Cataclysm, you know, but I was growing up, you know. But in this record, when it was done, I was like, dude, we have a very strong record, you know. And I understood why, because I didn't understand why the labels were like, so like, dude, this record's like, these 3 songs, there was 3 songs that got the band signed, and they were like, this is great, you know. but I have a hard time believing that until, you know, I get people like you or anybody else telling me, hey, it really is good album, you know. So you know, I hope so. You know, the Juno thing, man, it's you never know how they think, right? So it is what it is. You know, we hope, we'll see.
You're
You know?
due. You're due for another one.
Yeah.
And I honestly think this album is just, man, it's so fresh. It's I think I've listened to the record since I received it maybe like 10 times, maybe
Oh
more than
wow.
that.
Cool.
In one single day, I listened to it 5, 6 times in loop, because it doesn't get old. Like
Cool. It
it's
has,
put
yeah.
together as a
Does it
set
stand on
list.
its feet? You find it stands on its ground, like it has its
It
identity.
has the individuality of the songs. Like the songs are good on their own, so you can play them as singles. But then when you put them in the context of the record, it feels like I'm watching a live set. It has that sort of energy. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? It's an
Yeah.
album that's not super connected in terms of one track bleeding into another,
Mm.
but you almost like, okay, this one was great. What's the next one going to be like? You know, you have that excitement. Then the next one hits and you're like, holy shit, this one was great too. What's the next one going to be? And it never really stops until you reach the end of the record. So
Mhm.
it just has all the right pieces together: sound, lyrics, vocals, melodies, like everything. I was blown
Super.
away. I was expecting
Awesome.
something completely different, and I was blown away by how good it is.
Cool, dude. That's you coming from you. It's a great compliment. I appreciate it, man. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, Mauricio, thank you very much for your time today. I'm glad that you and your family, everybody is doing okay after that horrific storm that swept through Florida. I'm glad you guys are doing well, and I'm really hoping that the demand is there and that you have the ability to take this on the road. I would love to hear these songs live. I really,
You know, we might come up to Canada, try it there first, you know, see how it feels. You know, I'm for sure open to it, and I would love to see how it is live. You know, we when we shot the video for Get Up, it was the first time we actually played as a band together, and it felt really natural. Like it felt like, hey man, this we could see this on the road. You know, so we'll see. You know, we'll see.
and the beauty of it is that the singles are great, but I don't even think the singles are as good as some of the other tracks on the album. So
Mhm.
it
Right.
really says a lot about the overall quality of the record. I mean, to be honest with you, you could have closed your eyes and pick any song. Any song could have been a single.
It was a very difficult place to choose. Also because when we released the first single, for example, or whatever, should we go with a hard hitting track? If we go too commercial, maybe people are going to be like, what is he doing? You know, like, so there's still a little bit of that fear. Like it's not fear. It's you're a bit worried. You don't want people to kind of tag the record the wrong way, because this album is very diverse also. You know, if you have a track like for example, the next single is going to be Bleed Me Out, right?
My
So
favorite song, by the way.
it's a big track, right? So it's so, but if you release that the first song, I don't know if it really represents the entire record, right? So we didn't know really. Not that we didn't know, we were kind of being careful a little bit how we're gonna. Exile's punchy. It's a little bit more like the Cataclysm stuff. So we're kind of like easing in, you know. That one, Eagles, I think is another big one on that record. You know, there's stuff in there, you know, but Bleed Me Out is a big track.
It is. It is. I was actually surprised, and I mentioned this in my review that I recorded, that song wasn't one of the first singles, because to me it seems like it has all the right trademarks, all the right appeal to hit up
Right.
as a first single.
You know who told me that was the single and I didn't listen to him? And if he'd be right now, I'd be pissed off. Is my agent out of Germany. And he was at my house and he listened to the record before anybody else did. And he's like, dude,
That's
you
the
gotta
single.
release that track first. He's like, but then the label was like, we're not sure. And then everybody was like, kind of, you know, this is what I mean about when you do it, the first instinct, that's it. And then when you start procrastinating, then it's like, oh man, everything's weird, you know, like I don't know where. So that's,
Yeah,
we had a little
me
bit
and
of
him
that.
were on the same page. If I
Yeah,
was in charge, that would have been the first single.
yeah. And it's gonna come out. It's next week or this week. No, fourth next week. So basically, we'll see. You know what I mean? Like how it goes. You know, it's a very like there's not gonna be anything crazy around it as a video or anything, but it's gonna be like a visualizer or something like that for that track.
All right,
But
Maurizio, thank you very much for your time, man. Always a pleasure, and I hope to see you soon. I've seen a lot of you this year, but it's never enough. So I hope to see you
same
soon
here.
again, and I hope to see you perform these songs live. All the best, man.
All right, thank you so much, brother.
Take care,
Appreciate you.
man. Bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.